Hello everyone, and thank you for watching this very special edition of the Dieting Dietitian. Today I'm joined by my good friend, Rich Alexander. He's an IFBB pro and the owner of Superior Health here in Gainesville, Florida. So Rich, if you don't mind, tell us, how did you get into the natural health industry, bodybuilding?
How I first, well, it all really started out, I had a coworker. I used to tow furniture for a living for a few years, and that was pretty brutal. And I had a friend that, we became friends because we rode on the truck 8 hours together, so we were like brothers, you know. And he was a former bodybuilder in the early 80s, a local bodybuilder from Gainesville. He trained at Gainesville Gym, which was kind of like the mecca at the time here in Gainesville for bodybuilding. And he invited me to the gym with him one day. And so, you know, I went, and we ended up becoming training partners. And then he had another former friend who competed in the 80s also. This was right around, I want to say 2000, just so you know, right around 2000, no, about 2001 actually. And he had a friend, this was about 2002 when this happened, he had a friend that was competing in the Gainesville bodybuilding show that also trained at Gainesville Gym, and he asked me to join, you know, invited me to the show to come check it out and cheer this guy on. And at first I thought it was kind of like weird. I'm like, I don't know about a bodybuilding show. I don't want to see guys in Speedos oiled up. It didn't seem like my taste. But he convinced me to go, and I went to check it out. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. You know, once I went, it was just like I was kind of hooked. And kind of like after seeing, you know, a Rocky movie, when you get out of it, you want to go out, you know, I don't know,
you want to be a boxer,
somebody up or something. So I went to the gym that following Monday, and the owner of the gym happened to be the promoter of the show as well. And I told him, I said, man, I was really inspired by the bodybuilding show, and I would maybe like to pursue that maybe in a year's time, getting, you know, just good enough shape just to say I did it, kind of a bucket list thing. And he kind of just looked at me and told me, yeah, you don't have it. Don't bother. Don't waste your time. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of eating. It's a lot of training. You don't really have the genetics, so just don't even waste your time. And I was like, wow. So I kind of took that as a challenge, really, you know, because I don't sit down like that when somebody, you know, tells me that. So actually, I ended up training on my own. My other training partner, he was kind of like 2 or 3 days a week, kind of more casual training, you know, so I wanted to take it to the next level and just really started training myself, kind of watching some of the other guys that were also competing at the time, just trying to learn and emulate some of the things through workouts. They did a lot of posing practice in the gym, so I was trying to learn, you know, the right way to pose, but also the right way to pose with my body too, because everybody's different with the posing. So 1 year I came back and did that bodybuilding show, took second in my class, my first show, and I was kind of happy with it. You know, I was like, cool, got me, you know, #2 trophy and all that, but I wasn't happy because it was a close second. So I was like, man, you know, and the guy that beat me kind of got under my skin a little bit. He had guys following around like a camera crew and just trying to make a big production out of it, you know, where I'm kind of like more low key. I stay covered up, and, you know, I talk when I hit the stage, you know what I mean? That's when it happens.
You let your hard work do the talking.
Exactly. So I came back. I didn't come back the next year, but I came back the following year. I think it was 2000. Actually, my first year was 2004, by the way. And then in 2006, I came back and won my class. And then after that, I was just hooked after that. And I've been competing ever since. I did switch gears 2 years ago. Some of the judges, there's been some other classes that have come out, like Classic Physique, because they're trying to bring back the older look, the better aesthetics, like the Frank Zanes and Bill Pearls and guys like that, trying to bring back the smaller build, the small waist.
So that's considered the classic physique?
Yes, and the art form, because bodybuilding, I think, kind of lost its way, you know, the last few years as far as the posing aspect goes, and just the obtainable look, the aesthetic appeal with the bodybuilding. It's turned into a freak show, you know, over the last 10 years.
Now it's almost more about how much muscle you can put on versus like proportions.
Exactly, and that's why classic physique was kind of introduced to try to tame, you know, the bodybuilding, or at least give some guys that are just not going to have that genetic ability a better chance.
Yeah.
And then they also brought out the men's physique too, which is, you know, more the board short class, kind of the beach body class.
Huh.
But even that has kind of graduated a couple of levels too. You know, a lot of bodybuilders now have gotten tired of what they have to put their bodies through, the things that they have to put into their bodies to get them to that level. So they've scaled down into the men's physique and the classic bodybuilding.
And as you get older, it's harder to maintain.
Exactly.
I know,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just
a lot
turned
harder.
40 and I can't lift the heavy weight I used to.
Yeah.
Even though, I mean, genetically, I'm not made to do that. I'm still very healthy, but 20, I could do twice what I can do now.
Yeah.
You know, if I do that kind of weight, the next week my joints hurt.
Yeah, I will say, you know, I'm 48 now, so my days of squatting in the 400s and, you know, a lot of the heavy compound movements, I've learned through it. It took injuries to make me learn it, that I can back off and do more volume training, moderate weight, more creative lifts, giant sets, things like that. And even though I'm 48, I look better on stage than I did when I was 35. I've got more muscle maturity. I'm fuller, I'm harder, I'm more conditioned by doing more of the volume training versus let me, you know, just train heavy every single day. You know what I mean? And I will train heavy, but I save it, you know, once or twice a month, like deadlifts, for example. I'll do those, you know, I'll go heavy for a 1 rep max a couple times a month and that's it. But leading up to that, I do a lot of accessory work. I'll deadlift for reps. I do a lot of trap bar deadlifts, kettlebell swings, all kinds of glute, having a brain freeze, glute activation and things like things that are going to help my deadlift, not just beating the deadlift up every single week. Because training the deadlift heavy every week is not going to improve the deadlift. It's all the accessory work around that. And plus, you know, your chances like burning out your CNS, your central nervous system with constant heavy pounding is not good either. So that kind of got off track of what we were talking about.
No, that was perfect.
But-
That segued into a lot of things I want to
Yeah.
talk about. So you're talking about different workouts. Like for you, you don't lift heavy every day. It's only a couple times a month.
Yeah.
So if you were, like, give us an idea of what you like to do for different approaches for different results, like trying to get more lean or cutting versus bulking versus strength. How do you approach each one of those?
Well, for cutting, really with me, the training doesn't change that much, like versus when I'm bulking, it's really the diet.
Okay.
You know, cutting out or increasing cardio, and really my diet doesn't change a lot from when I'm cutting and when I'm bulking. It's just when I'm bulking, you know, my meals stay about the same, 5-6 meals a day. High protein, a lot of greens, moderate fat, low carb, which I like to do carb cycling too. I'll do low carbs for, you know, 5-6 days straight, and then like on day 7, I'll quadruple my carbs, cut my protein in half. Just when I'm bulking, I just add in more of the food that I actually like to eat, like junk food. So
Yeah.
I eat ice cream in between my meals, and you know, extra almond butter or some muscle sandwich bars and things in between. And when I'm cutting, I really just cut all the extracurricular stuff out, but the base diet is really about the same. I just cut out the junk. I cut out dairy too, like in the off season. I do eat more dairy, not a lot, but dairy is like one of the big factors. I cut that out, and I immediately, like within 10 days, I see a huge, you know, cut in my weight.
Okay.
And I do ramp the cardio up a little bit. I add more fasted cardio in the morning, and more evening workouts, and more fasted cardio in the morning. But other than that, the diet's about the same. The training doesn't change a lot, except I do cut back and I try to train safer, because heavier compound lifts, I am definitely more prone to injury. I've noticed that the leaner I get, you know, trying to do heavy deadlifts, heavy bench. And that's another thing too, with heavy bench, it's really not necessary, in my opinion, for building. You know, unless you're a newbie and you're just starting out, you know, I think the bench press is pretty much a waste of time. It does, you know, feel good to get under the bench and move some heavy weight. I'm not saying I don't bench, but I don't make that my meat and potatoes when I'm trying to get, you know, built for a show. You know, it's I do a lot of band work, a lot of dumbbell work, and I mix it up with some machines. I do some bench, a lot of reverse grip bench, and decline bench and stuff like that, but I pretty much avoid the bench press. I don't do a lot of deadlifts, when I'm trying to,
Okay.
if I do, it's pretty light, for repetitions, because it is a good overall body movement. It's probably my favorite exercise to do, but it's also the one I'm most prone to get injured with doing at the same time. So you gotta play it safe. You gotta play it safe and know your body,
Yeah, because one injury can put you out of the gym for a month, to
Exactly.
2 months, or longer.
Exactly.
And that's super frustrating for anyone who's
Yeah.
ever been injured. You're like, oh, now I can't do what I'd love to do.
Yeah, or you gotta work around it. I've gotten pretty creative at working around injuries too, Some people will take an injury as an excuse and just run with it as a way to stay out of the gym, but I find it as a more challenging to find more creative ways to work around it, and that's just, that just makes you more experienced and enhances, your arsenal of different exercises and things you know how to do. So I've learned a lot of new workouts just being creative by working around injuries.
What is it like to prepare for a competition? Like, how do you get prepared? You talk about it physically, but how do you get prepared mentally?
Well, there's a mental aspect and there's also a financial aspect too that's really important, especially if you're on a budget. I know that the main thing was physical and mental, but for me it's more financial than anything. It's really expensive to compete. And I want to tell people out there, if you're considering a show, start saving. Pick a show maybe a year out, 10, 12 months out, and just start putting money away for it. Because that's the one thing when it correlates with the mental. When it's mental, really social life pretty much kind of gets scrapped. Friends that want to take you out to eat, or if you're younger, you want to go out and drink, or we're going out this Saturday to eat with the boys. We're going to have all you can eat wing night Monday night. It's like you got to scrap that stuff, or just be hard and just sit there and drink your glass of water and eat a salad, and then they're going to poke fun of you and things like that. So for me, the social life kind of goes away. Not that I have a huge social life anyway. I'm married with 2 kids, and there's not a whole lot of outside action in the house anyway.
Well, and you own your own business, and you're a professional bodybuilder.
Exactly.
That's your life.
Yeah. So the social life pretty much is, for the younger people, the social life is probably going to go away for a few months, but it'll always come back. Food you enjoy, things like that. But your friends will always come back. Your friends will be there when you're done with your show. The food will be there, when you're done with your show. But the financial for me kind of correlates with the mental aspect because it's very stressful. I stress about the financial part of it. And when you're trying to prep for a show, the last thing you want to do is stress as a factor. I'm not going to get into the whole cortisol production.
That's exactly what I was thinking about, yep.
Stress will, especially the leaner you get, stress will cause a lot of changes and visual things you can see going on in your body when cortisol happens. Water retention, fat that doesn't want to go away on your lower abs. Those are things I deal with. But financially, I say, to keep the stress away, start saving your money ahead of time. Put money away for the lodging because the hotels aren't cheap, and you've got to stay at least 2 nights. It's not a one-night deal. And they always want to put you up in the host hotels that are, $150, $200 a night. Me personally, I go somewhere that's 2 miles down the road that's $50, $70 a night. That's what I do. You have to have the sanction fees, and depending on what organization, those can cost anywhere from $50 to $200 just to have a card that says you can compete in the show. Then when you get to the show, you have to pay your entry fees. And entry fees are a minimum nowadays $50, $60 per class. And then you have people that cross over into other classes too. So there's people that pay $300, $400 just in entry fees, plus the sanction fee, plus your lodging, your food, and then you've got like tanning supplies. If you're getting spray tan, that's $150. For the ladies, the bodybuilders are lucky because our suits cost like $20. But for the ladies, you're talking $500, $600, $700 for a lot of those suits for the figure,
Really?
of women's physique. It's really expensive. So save your money and ahead of time, be prepared. And the stress from that, that'll help alleviate some of the stress leading into it. You don't have to worry about it if you've got the money put away, ahead of time. mentally, it's just, I pick a show, I think, am I ready? Am I injuries? I'm always gonna have some type of injuries to deal with at my age, but have my injuries subsided enough? And have I made enough gains? Am I feeling comfortable with what I'm bringing to the table in the off season to go ahead and start cutting now? Am I gonna be able to hit my goals, what I want to look like on stage with what I've built, in this off season? But for me, building in the off season doesn't change much from year to year. I might put on half a pound a year if I'm lucky at this point, But, I know my body, and I know, in the off season, if I'm doing what I need to be doing, if I'm at the right spot, where I can start cutting for a show. And I give myself at least, 16, 20 weeks, and then I try to find a couple of shows immediately after that first one too. Because if I'm gonna do one show, if you've done all that work, getting all the dieting, all the money, and all that conditioning, all the cardio and things that you've done, all the sacrificing, I've seen a lot of people and they just do one show and then that's it. They quit. They're tired. They want to go back to eating. They're just gassed. But then next year, all of a sudden, from out of nowhere, they're motivated again to do another one. I say, when you're in that mode, pick your shows wisely. Find that first show that you may want to do, but see if there's other shows, the week after or 2 weeks after that, maybe in the same area too, so you don't have to travel all over the country, just to compete. And pick that little cluster of shows and just hit them all back to back and get them over with. That's what I like to do. Like I say, you've done all that work, you might as well hit more than one show. Hit one, my max, the most I've ever done is 5, because you got to think about that too. Your body's in that state of, being anywhere between 3 to 5% body fat. You can only sustain that for so long, safely too. So, you got to think about that factor too. 5, I did 5 in one season. That was a little too much. I started to actually kind of deteriorate. I atrophied a lot from the 4th show to the 5th show. I still won the 5th show, but I sacrificed a lot of muscle too to keep dieting for another 3 weeks, to do that last one. But I don't think it was worth it. I say, 3 to 4 is kind of the sweet spot. But mentally, it's just, like I say, I pick a date and, that's my goal, and I just hit it. I don't know if I can really explain much more. That's mentally, because mentally I'm always in it, whether I'm in the off season or getting ready for a show. Now, when I am training, like in the moment, when I'm hitting my sets, it's kind of weird. My wife asked me this. She's like, how do you do it? Like, she goes, I see you and, we're hitting 3, 4 sets. We're doing like 10, 12 reps, and then, we're both gassed. And all of a sudden, you just come out of nowhere on this last set, and you'll crank just out of nowhere, you'll crank out 25 reps when you're struggling to do 10 and 12. It's kind of like it's weird. I've never heard anybody else say this. It's kind of like almost an out of body experience. I almost like jump out of my own body, and it's like I'm looking at myself and I'm making myself do these extra reps. And at the same time, I'm visualizing myself. And this is huge too. Visualizing is huge, huge, huge. You visualize it and you can make it happen. If you visualize it enough times, you can make your goal on stage what you want to look like, or if powerlifting too. If you visualize it while you're lifting, for me anyway, it's going to happen, if that makes sense. But for me, it's almost like an out-of-body experience. I'm like yelling at myself, to hit those extra 12, 15 reps. Because I think about the other competitors that are also training for the same show, you know what I mean? I'm not going to be outdone by someone else that's at another gym, 5 counties away or another state away. Because I know someone else out there is training just as hard as me, if not harder. So mentally, it's like I'm not going to be outdone. I don't care who's showing up; they're not going to outdo me. So that's kind of my mentality with it. It's kind of like almost like do or die. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I train.
Very cool.
The last 10 weeks, before a show, it's like do or die time. And it's just. I make it happen.
So I know you run your own supplement,
Yes.
bodybuilding, natural food store.
Yes.
what are your go-to supplements for any time of the year when you're working out, whether it's, like before a show, after competition, during, like, what are your favorites?
I would say year-round, staples that I never really eliminate. Glutamine is huge. L-glutamine, protein shakes, I sell protein powders, but I'm not the biggest guy to promote protein powders. There was a time where I did 2 seasons long of competing where I did no shakes.
Really?
Everything was food. I tried it, I experimented with it, and I looked just as good, if not better, just by consuming more food than relying on shakes and bars and things like that. I'm not saying I don't drink shakes and I don't eat bars, but I don't depend on them at all for my gains. But anyway, off track on that. Glutamine is huge. In men's health, I can't, preach this one enough. A lot of guys, am I allowed to throw a name out there, like a product name?
Go for it, yeah.
Like Nugenics, for example. That one is, huge. GNC pushes it. It's on TV, infomercials, things like that. And I have guys ask me about that product. And like, it's okay. I read the formula. It's a decent formula. But I just feel like the numbers, are kind of off the mark. They're not very high. And even not related to that, a lot of guys come in, hey man, what can I do to get some energy and get better gains in the gym? I'm eating good. First, I target sleep too, sleep and recovery. Again, stress. We go back to stress. Stress is huge. Sleep, huge for recovery. But a lot of people, overlook the basics like vitamin D. Vitamin D is so highly overlooked in my opinion. It's so inexpensive. But it plays such a huge role in hormone balance, hormone production in men and women. Because I'm always trying to look for like natural ways to boost, what I'm doing and get better results in the gym. And it's tough, especially, when you're like 48, 49, pushing 50, pretty much tried everything, you know what I mean? So it's hard to find things that really make a difference. But D3 always, year round. Zinc, and I'm not talking like 2-3 milligrams of zinc. I mean, I actually dose anywhere between 60 and 120 milligrams of zinc, as long as it's complemented with, the copper and things like that too. We can go into that a little further if you want. And DIM is huge too. DIM is huge, and that supplement alone, I carry it here in my store, and that supplement alone has turned into my best-selling product here in the store. Not because I push it. I mean, anything I promote to people or talk to them about, I tell them to read up on it. Do your own research. Don't just listen to me. Do your research and then come back to me with your opinion. And I noticed I started selling a little bit, 1-2 bottles a week, and then 4 or 5 bottles a week. And now I swear almost half the gym, mostly men, are taking the DIM.
That's awesome.
And the feedback is good. And this is coming from powerlifters, bodybuilders, people who have been training a long time in the same boat. I've tried everything. I've tried all these supplements, and man, I really get a boost from that. Like, I actually notice this work, and not many supplements do that. That's the general feedback I'm getting from that. I actually put my wife on some DIM too, just because she had, some acne breakouts, and we think it's some hormonal things going on, and I put her on the DIM, and her acne literally cleared up in like 3 days. It was amazing. So really those 4, glutamine, DIM, vitamin D, zinc, magnesium's another one too that I like to throw in the mix. And then, then there's different herbs and things that I suggest, for other things. And there's other supplements that I take that I kind of rotate, in and out of my regimen, but those are always there.
What about, again, we always hear about the most common, like the pre-workouts seem to be huge, the branched amino acids or creatine. What are your thoughts on those?
Personally, I do branched chain amino acids. Again, I usually am a person, I'm kind of like the protein shakes with the branched chain amino acids. If I'm consuming the right amount of food, the right amount of proteins, the right variety of proteins, that's another thing too. I could go on about this too. the bodybuilding competitors that just eat tilapia and asparagus 7 times a day, or chicken and green beans 7 times a day.
Chicken and broccoli.
Chicken and broccoli, you gotta mix it up. You know, and tilapia is actually one I avoid too, but for some reasons that may be obvious or not. But, you know, I mix it up with turkey. I do lean ground beef. You know, I don't do that much of it, but I do keep beef in the mix. I do chicken in the mix, turkey in the mix, eggs, you know, good whole free range eggs, actually right out of my coop, you know, in my backyard. I do my own
So I
eggs.
didn't do that.
Yeah, in fact, we got a couple of new chickens today because some of the ones we have now are starting to get to that age where they stop producing the eggs, or at least slow down. So I get my own eggs. So I try to keep the protein variety mixed up, same with the vegetables. You know, I'm not just broccoli 7 times a day. In fact, I did that. I made that mistake years ago and learned from it. In fact, just the smell of broccoli now will make me run the other way.
Well, and that's a great point, because different vegetables, the different colors, have different health benefits.
Yes.
Like there's lutein versus the different carotenoids.
Yes.
So you need to get all those in to maintain your health.
Yes.
And that's what you're really about. I mean,
Yes.
you're a bodybuilder, but you're also
Yes.
about maintaining your body for
Yes.
the next 20, 30, 40 years.
Yes, and then the branched chain amino acids, you know, I don't really, in the off season, I feel like I eat enough food, enough volume, I get enough protein and enough variety where, for me personally, everybody's different, but with the branched chains, I feel like my body just doesn't need them that much and doesn't utilize them. But now when I switch to my cutting, or when I'm doing my fasted cardio, or I'm in a, you know, I'm in a kind of a caloric deficit, then I feel like the branched chains kind of help at least prevent, you know, my muscles from you know, breaking down and things like that. You know, I try to keep my body in that anabolic state, especially, you know, the leaner you get, the more cardio you start incorporating, you know, the more you're at risk of that happening. And that's when I'll start doing the branched chains. Sometimes I'll throw a little bit in my pre-workout, you know, even now in the off season, but really just, you know, no rhyme or reason, just because I have some, they taste good, I throw them in my pre-workout and I like them, you know, but I don't think the necessity is really there. Creatine, that one, again, I sell creatine, I promote creatine, but that's one that I've used over the years off and on, and I've tried different kinds, you know, the creatine, you know, the crealkaline, the monohydrate, the micronized, the HCl. For me, it doesn't do a whole lot, again, or I haven't noticed much result.
Rich, that was awesome. I really appreciate all the information you shared. This guy's a wealth of information. I'm going to put him on the spot. I'm going to be back in the next month or two.
Okay.
Would you be willing to do some training with me?
Yes.
That would be awesome. 'Cause, I mean, again, I am going through this, I'm trying to get into the shape where I could do some, back to my MMA and jiu-jitsu, like a higher cardio, but still retain what I have.
Yes.
So if you're willing to share, I'd love that
Yeah,
information.
for sure.
Sweet.
You
Good.
pick the day, and you pick, I don't know if you want full body, or if you want to pick like a back day, or arm day, chest day, or a little bit of everything, kind of a circuit, you know, it's up to you.
I mean,
We'll do it.
If
Yeah.
we can do it, I'd like to get as many different exercises critiqued by you so I can
Okay.
show some improvement.
Cool.
Again, Rich Alexander, Superior Health in Gainesville, Florida. Awesome guy. Please come see him. He's located inside the Y. And are you still doing some like training for like helping people get ready for competitions?
I do a little bit of diet consultation. With the with the athletes, I don't really have to do much training per se, which is good. You know, the first thing we do is we look at the diet, we do a physique critique, so you got to strip down and you got to be open to criticism. That's huge too. That's something we could even talk about another thing too, you know, just competing itself, you know, the competing mode.
Maybe next time I'm here,
Yeah.
we could go over that in more detail. If you have any like comments, questions, please put them on the comment section below. Please look, you have your own Facebook page for your bodybuilding, right? Is it Rich Alexander?
It's just me, yeah, Rich Alexander, IFBB Pro, yeah. I am going to be launching a website for the store on there very soon too. I'm waiting to get the online store set up, and then that should be up probably in the next couple of weeks too. So
Very cool.
yeah.
So please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please check out Rich's websites, and please check out my Instagram page, Dieting Dietitian. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you
Goodbye.
guys.